Well, dozens of people have marched through Myanmar's largest city to call for an end to military rule. Some burned a flag representing the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. ASEAN has been leading unsuccessful diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis. Let's speak to Phil Robertson about all this. He's the Deputy Asia Director at Human Rights Watch and joins us via Skype from Bangkok. Very good to have you with us again on Al-Jazeera, Phil. Let's start with the trial of Aung San Suu Kyi that begins today. What do you make of the charges against her, and is she likely to get a fair trial?
Well, these charges are bogus and they're politically motivated. All you need to know, for instance, is like the walkie-talkie charge that has been brought against her. Those walkie-talkies were actually owned by her bodyguards, who were provided by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And the Ministry of Home Affairs in the pre-coup government was controlled by the military. These are the kind of charges that are being brought against us. They're politically motivated, and they're intended to basically knock her out of the political arena and keep her under arrest and ultimately in some sort of imprisonment to basically run out the clock on her and the National League for Democracy Party, which won the November 2020 election.
Yeah. So why go ahead with this trial if, this is just an attempt, as you say, to stop any challenge from her in the future? I mean, why pretend, I guess, to hold her, to hold this trial?
Well, that's a good question. I think it comes in part from the international pressure. It comes also, I think, from a recognition that holding, someone who is the leader of the government in indefinite detention without significant movement on the charges would be untenable. We don't think that she's going to get a fair trial. This is a court that is beholden to the military and will basically do what the military asks it to do.
Right. So if, as you say, this is an attempt to neuter any sort of challenge to the military rule, then what impact will it have, you think, on the almost daily protests we've seen in Myanmar since the February coup?
I think it will create greater anger, particularly amongst the ethnic Burmans, which is 65% of the population, among whom Aung San Suu Kyi is hugely popular. She is the most popular political figure in the country. There's no doubt about that. And they will see her once again as a martyr for democracy and human rights, which have been stripped away from the Burmese people by this military junta.
Yeah. The military's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has released a statement today accusing the UN of unfair and inaccurate assessment of the situation in Myanmar after, the UN human rights chief called it a human rights catastrophe. Do you feel that the international community, Phil, has done enough, Asian leaders have done enough to put pressure on this military?
Well, there are two parts of this. I mean, on one hand, we want to see more international action, particularly targeted economic sanctions to cut off funds, for instance, like the oil and gas money that the Myanmar junta is receiving. We also want to see a global arms embargo, which the UN Security Council has failed to pass in a resolution. But we also see there's a dynamic where the UN is being bypassed by the military junta to talk to ASEAN. Because they think they're going to get a better deal from ASEAN. And the ASEAN itself, as a regional body, has been much more willing to defend the Myanmar military junta. So they're playing political games here. They're maneuvering to sort of marginalize international concern about Myanmar. And unfortunately, parts of the international community are falling down on their job to stand up for the people of Myanmar and for the restoration of democracy.
Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.